right. Well, welcome, Jess. We got a bunch of people here. So, yeah. So I guess people with questions, start typing them in the chat, and we'll start addressing them one by one. All right. So the first question is from Victor. The only concern I have with this is feedback speak. How does Cypress compare to Jest in that regard?
Yeah, and that is the biggest. That is the people ask always. So Jest does a lot of shortcuts, and I actually know this because we've been kind of turning Jest inside out at Cypress. We've been trying to understand exactly what makes it very fast. It takes a lot of shortcuts. One of them is that it never renders any static assets. So no matter what we do in browser-based testing, it will always be slower. So in my experience, I was getting 400 milliseconds between test runs, and like it's not quick, but 400 milliseconds is very close to Jest quick, and you end up having to use only on some of the heavier components. Like you only want to run like the one render one that you're playing with. But for the entire app, it was like 5 seconds to do the whole app with, I don't know, 1,600 components. And each one of the cells is a component. So like, it's decent. So what else?
Great. Okay, so the next question we have is from Adrian. And so I know the Vue plugin is still experimental, but are there plans for a Nuxt plugin as well?
Oh, so we do not plan to separate Nuxt from Vue. When Nuxt is ready, it will be done. And we do plan to do it. We just got Next in yesterday for React. And it is one of the things we work on. So React is working with Next, and soon we will have Nuxt support as well.
Great. So Tech Monito says, do you add Cypress testing libraries to other frameworks like React, Svelte, etc.?
So we have non-core managed forks of all of this. So we have a Svelte one that is actually, I think, working, but it's like super alpha. And then we also have an Angular one, and I don't know the state of that. So if you want to see the ones that are an index of all of them, you can go to Gleb Bamutov's GitHub page, which I can send a link to.
I'll get that right now.
And he has like 6 of them, but the state of them is like unknown. So the ones that we're backing right now are the React and Vue ones.
Drop that in the notes for everyone, for those looking for that repo.
Thank you. Oh, there's 800 repos on there, so you want to filter.
Yes.
by like Cypress, asterisk, unit test. He calls them unit tests also. It's a philosophical difference we have. Cypress calls them component tests.
Ramona has a question for you regarding, is it easy to migrate a test base from vue-test-utils / Jest to this new component testing?
I don't know. This is one of the reasons why we're in alpha. In theory, it should work. It has the same exact signature, and you do get access to the wrapper. So in theory, you could make a code mod even that does it. It's one of the things that we're interested in exploring, and we will take PRs if people are interested in writing code mods for us. But
yes.
One day at a time, yeah.
Yeah, Cypress is completely open source for those who don't know.
Yes.
Cool. So Morton has a question. So I just saw that Cypress has support for Canvas image snapshot testing. Do you also have support for more in-depth end-to-end user flows, such as mouse interaction, again, within a Canvas-based app?
So the short answer is no, I don't think. There's a lot of APIs that Cypress has, but they're all JavaScript based. So simulating clicks and stuff like that is possible, and there are third-party extensions that do simulate, mouse hovers. But you're gonna have to look. Anything that's not like your standard DOM element that users would point and click at, you might have to find a third-party plugin for, or the handlers yourself. The test runner will do it though. It's just JavaScript. But like finding that mapping, depending on if you're like doing native Canvas in particular, or like more complex stuff, might be a higher startup cost.
Great answer. Let's see. So then we have from Stanley, how do you configure options for Cypress? Is it via package.json or through a dedicated UI in the browser app?
So we have a Cypress JSON file. We are looking to have other extensions, TypeScript, but right now we all use a JSON file. Very simple.
Another question from Adrian. Do you see a place where you'd use Vue Testing Library over Cypress, or is it a complete replacement?
Vue Testing Library over Cypress. Do you mean the testing library, or do you mean vue-test-utils?
Yeah, so the Kensi ones or the official VTU?
I know.
Testing library. So yep, Adrian.
We have support for testing library with Cypress. So like one of the benefits with Cypress is its ecosystem is just huge, and we have testing library plugins already, and so you can use testing library in Cypress for component testing, and that just works.
Very nice. I like the progressive nature of that. Salvatore's a great question. Is it possible to have your slides, Jessica? People are really eyeing over how beautiful they are.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, Keynote's a little weird about getting them out, but I will get them out.
So should they expect to then, will you tweet about it? Or?
I will tweet it, yes.
All right, fantastic. So let me make sure your Twitter is in here for everybody. And then for those wondering, I am going to try to reach out to the organizers to sort of consolidate all the resources so you all can just get it all at once as far as slides, recordings, etc. But in the meantime, if you want the latest and greatest, definitely come to the speakers first. It's the fastest way. So I apologize if I mispronounce this, but Joris has a question. What size project do you see as the limit for using in-browser component testing, both in the max size and in the min size?
Well, it shouldn't scale based on the project, right? It should, if you're doing component testing, it should ideally your components should be small enough that it shouldn't matter how big you go. Given that we were built for end-to-end tests, we can handle entire apps. Whether or not you want your team to wait for your component tests to load entire apps is a separate question. Like end-to-end tests are slow because of what they load, not necessarily, I don't know, how big the app is. It's like both, but test small components. And you can test many of them as big as you want, but don't try to load like 5 pages in one go.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Good advice. So Miriam has a question. Is it possible to write custom matchers in Cypress?
Yes. Just like Jest, Cypress is actually on top of Mocha and Chai. So if you want to extend your Chai assertions, you can. It's a bit of a different, format. Jest likes camel casing and Chai likes dots between words, but that's really the only difference. You can extend both of them.
Great. Artur has a question. In your alpha version, have you had any experience with mobile testing single components?
Mobile testing which? Single components. Ooh, what's a single component?
I'm thinking like maybe devices or maybe...
Yeah. So Cypress does not support mobile testing. So
mobile devices, yep.
So no. Yeah.
At this time, that is not possible.
Yes. We do support responsive browser sizes, and one of the things Cypress does is it gives you like a window command to resize your canvas. So you can see, using Cypress between your mounts, you can essentially go between breakpoints and see your component go bam, bam, bam between like mobile, medium, and large. But if you're looking for like native touch events, we're not there yet. We've prioritized desktop end-to-end testing classically. So.
All right. So Ramona has another question.
Mhm.
Is it similar to integrate component testing in GitHub Actions to the way we do in E2E?
So in theory, yes, that will just work. I have not tried it. I think we must run them. Cypress
I
has a
think
really
so.
big testing suite. What? What,
I
Ben?
said I would think so. I said I would
We
think so.
we have like, I think we have like a straight hour and a half of Cypress tests that run, and a good, like, we test, actually we have an integration suite. This is pretty interesting. We have an integration suite that is all CI providers. So because Cypress is interested in working for every CI provider between AppVeyor and Circle and Jenkins and TeamCity, we have one repository that contains all of these config files, and then we spawn off and run our tests on all of them. One of them is GitHub Actions. And in that test suite, I think we do have component tests. So in theory, it should work, but I don't know.
And if it doesn't, Ramona, file an issue and we'll happily take a
we'll
look
add
at
it.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't see why it shouldn't, though. Okay, so looks like we have, nope, we have that. Okay.
Oh, is it
Victor.
possible to get, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, the one I'm seeing is, will Cypress support remote automation? In other words, using the Chrome remote protocol to automate an app running remotely.
I don't understand why, but I don't know. I mean, like, it's, the question is like, what part of Cypress are you after? Do you want the server? Do you want the event simulation done on the browser side? Like, that's kind of the question, is like, do you want the part that runs the tests? I'm not sure which part of Cypress you want to go where. Yeah, an app running on a TV. I mean, it's the same problem with an app running on a mobile phone, right? It's an external device, and I honestly have not spent enough time playing with that. I'm solely focused on rendering components in the browser. Yeah, we do have code coverage, by the way, Julian. Julian asks, sorry, I'm doing your job, Ben.
Oh, please.
My bad. Julian asks, does Cypress build reports for code coverage? And yes, and it's integrated in the Vue CLI plugin for Cypress component testing. It is like, you install it, you run it, and then your code coverage is just done with Vue. All right, I'll stop reading them then.
At all. If you get to, I don't want to break up anything, the natural flow. So we have a question. So is it possible to get select statements from click from Canvas, like writing side.get of what we've done from browser interactions?
Select statements from like side, click, etc., like what we have done from browser interactions. I do not know specifically. All I can tell you is that if you want something and you can get it from your browser, if you can, like, in your console on in your Chrome browser, if you can like type some JavaScript that does what you want, you can make a Cypress custom command to wrap that. So if you can programmatically do what you want with like getting the correct canvas element and then finding all the events that you want to, or the elements you want to grab, and like selecting them, whatever events those trigger, if you can make a custom command for that, then you're good. And you can then take that and do what you want with it.
Sounds good. Looks like Adrian has a question. Do you have any recommendations on TDD with Storybook and this library? I'm assuming you mean resources, but maybe.
With Storybook in this library. So I view this as divergent paths. I view Cypress component testing as replacing Storybook for a lot of things. And I realize that's like kind of a big ask. That's why it's an alpha. But I view it as eventually replacing Storybook. It does so for my workflow. Storybook still does a lot of other things that are not replaceable right now by Cypress. the other option is if you don't want to use Cypress component testing and you just want to have this kind of a component development cycle where you're pointing your tests at your storybook, you can do that with Cypress E2E testing or any other E2E testing suite with Storybook. So it's like choose the alpha route, or you don't want to wait for alpha to become stable. You can go right now with an end-to-end solution and Storybook. Does that make sense? I know that was like a little complex.
Okay. Moving on. Could you please explain what cy.pause does that you use as a workaround for transitions? Is it like setTimeout?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Cy.pause is just like pausing your app. So like, and your tests. So it's like if you ever come from Selenium, and this is why this is a total E2E thing to add to Cypress, and we just kind of get it for free. If you ever have worked in Selenium, you will often see like browser wait commands where you're like waiting for seconds. And cy.pause lets you kind of wait indefinitely for you to debug your application. That's the history of why we have it. But anyway, it lets you play pause, essentially, programmatically.
Very nice. All right. Okay, so you got that one. We got lots of questions here. Are there any difficulties in setting up Cypress for running both E2E and component testing in a single project?
Likely many. This is very alpha, and that is one of the big things we have left to do. So like the big things we have left are bundling, complex setups that are like, so complex bundling, and then we have integration between component testing and E2E. I know it works. Like we do it right now, and we have been doing it for 2 years with this alpha product. But how easy that is to set up is something else.
Okay. And from Stanley, is there a mix-in functionality, in other words, for setup and teardown functions that allow them to be reused across tests?
Cypress, I don't know. It's a Cypress question, not a component testing question. So you would want to search for like Cypress common teardown and common setup. It has to exist.
Yeah, I feel like it does, but I can't.
It has to, yeah. I just don't know if it's as simple as writing it in a before each.
Right.
Yeah. Cypress has a very interesting test runner, so it's not quite Mocha. So you might get different results. You have to try it out.
Cool. So Victor has a question. Will we be able to use commands and all that good stuff?
Oh, yeah. All of Cypress, just like all of Cypress's goodness. You got the routing, you got the commands, everything.
Great.
It's very easy.
And so, Michael, your question, what signifies Cypress? Are you saying, why is it called Cypress? Because Jess had a funny emoji tweet about that, actually.
I did have an emoji tweet about that. No, I asked what emoji is Cypress, and I gave the choice between like tree A and tree B. Let's do it here. Let's see if anybody can give me the answer. There's like this tree or this tree. And then we had a whole debate in Slack about it yesterday. And our founder then explained to us why it was called Cypress. And I think the answer is that there was an old testing tool called Evergreen. If I remember right, if I like go back to Slack, it would tell me. But yeah, there was an old testing tool called Evergreen, and he really wanted that name, but every derivative of Evergreen was taken, so we wound it up with Cypress.
It's all good. Does anyone have any other questions or comments they'd like to share with Jess? Okay, from Morton. What has been your biggest challenge yet personally working at Cypress?
Detached elements, I think, can be really frustrating because you have to think about when you key something. and when that triggers a re-render. So like router views and triggering route changes, making sure that you get like a fresh element. It's like similar to the await problem for nextTick in Vue test-utils. It's one of the things I plan on writing a lot about, is how to specifically test Vue reactive applications with Cypress, and dealing with all those things.
Great. Cool. All right, looks like everyone's good to go. Thank you so much, Jess, for taking the time to join us for this live Q&A. It's been a lot of fun.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
All right, talk
Bye.
to you all on the main stage. Bye-bye.